Okay, you cited freedom of speech in that. Why should your right to freedom of speech trump a trans person's right not to be offended?
Because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. You know, like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? It's been rather uncomfortable.
Well, I'm very glad I put you on the spot.
Well,
I'm very glad that I have
but you get
exercised my freedom of speech.
You get my point. It's like you're doing what you should do, which is digging a bit to see what the hell's going on.
So
and that is what you should do. But you're exercising your freedom of speech to certainly risk offending me. And that's fine. I think more power to you as far as I'm concerned.
So you haven't sat there and... I'm just trying to work that out. I mean...
Ha, gotcha.
Hello, Alice Rose.
Good evening, Rabid Dog.
How are you tonight?
You doing? I'm very well, thank you.
Good,
and,
good.
Jordan Peterson, that was a wonderful intro. I completely align with what he's saying. I've always said it myself. Be offended. If my opinion offends you, be offended, and I'll do likewise. It's about freedom, isn't it? Freedom of thought. And stop throwing the toys out the pram, right? Be adult. Be offended. It's fine. It's okay to be offended.
We live in the offense culture, don't we? I think it's been prevalent for the last 10, 15 years.
I know.
It's very strange. And I've heard a lot of esoteric arguments, right? That what happens at the end of an empire, like at the end of the Roman Empire, the populace becomes ever more increasingly decadent and more obsessed with self-gratification because they have no more enemies to fight. There's no more big battles to fight. They no longer have to be tough and hard. And I know we're both in the UK, but we're in the West, and the West essentially is America and its friends, right? And a lot of people have argued that this is what we're living through over the last couple of decades is the end of another empire, you know, and in the West we're becoming weak and overly sensitive, you know? And I think the recent social justice warrior craze is maybe one indication of that. It's a flag of that, maybe.
Yeah. You mean people have got, they've got no real principle to fight for, so they create their own, which does it really have that greater meaning? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're describing? People are looking for meaning when they're, you know...
Meaning is the key thing, yeah. It's a desire for meaning in one's life. And because the way that life and culture has developed in the West, it's like, where do people feel a sense of meaning in their life in general, right? You don't have to think about that so much when life is hard and when life is tough, you know? There's just not enough space in your life to do that. But when life is easy, and it is easy in the West, right?
It's very comfortable, isn't it?
Very comfortable, right?
Very leisurely, if we think about it. Everything's so easy, isn't it? Everything's so accessible. Where do we find that meaning? Therefore, let's create some campaign or cause, right? Yeah, I kind of align with that.
It's like people start to look inwards rather than outwards, and become ever more aware of their own needs, you know, their own personal, deep-rooted needs. just to give a boxing analogy, Marvin Hagler, he always used to say when he was reflecting upon his career and towards the end of the career, he said it's a
Yeah.
lot harder to get up in the morning and go out training and go out running for hours on end when you're waking up in silk pajamas, right?
Yes.
Once you get
Yeah.
that success and once you're comfortable, it's a lot harder to have that grit and desire and passion.
Where's the purpose? Where's the hunger? Yeah. It drives you, doesn't it? Hardship drives you. A fight can
Out of
drive you.
necessity. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I love this interview with Jordan. I hope we're able to play a lot of it. I know that Channel
Yeah.
4 has a very tight grip on its publications.
On its
Um,
copyright on YouTube, yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Well, we will try our best, but hopefully we can get away with a few little clips.
yes, it would be worth it. They're both great. Kathy Newman is great, and obviously Jordan is. But it's a great conversation, right?
It is.
I feel, yeah.
It is. And for anyone that's not aware, this was really the most famous interview he ever had. And it was obviously over in the UK on one of our mainstream channels, Channel 4, who are kind of known for being a little bit more edgy than the other channels, right? Than the BBC.
Yeah.
And Kathy Newman is a really kind of hard-hitting journalist over here. And this is very interesting.
It is. And I think it's well worth noting it's had to date 37 million views.
Yeah, yeah.
Incredible.
And the one phrase that will stick in your mind after watching this or listening to this is, so what you're saying is, she's constantly trying to tell Jordan what he's saying.
Yeah, I know. His face is wonderful. He's absolutely certain of his own mind and his own thoughts. He's just that's what I admire most about him. Everything that comes out of his mouth, he's thought about it. He's really thought about it. You know, I
Yeah.
love that certainty. It's very admirable.
Yeah, I agree.
Jordan Peterson, you've said that men need to, quote, grow the hell up. Tell me why.
Well, because there's nothing uglier than an old infant. There's nothing good about it. People who don't grow up don't find the sort of meaning in their life that sustains them through difficult times, and they're certain to encounter difficult times. And they're left bitter and resentful and without purpose and adrift and hostile and resentful and vengeful and arrogant and deceitful and of no use to themselves and of no use to anyone else and no partner for a woman, and there's nothing in it that's good.
So you say, I mean, that sounds pretty bad. You're saying
It's
there's a
bad.
crisis of masculinity? I mean, what do you do about it?
You help people understand why it's necessary and important for them to grow up and adopt responsibility, why that isn't a shake your finger and get your act together sort of thing, why it's more like a delineation of the kind of destiny that makes life worth living. I've been telling young men, but it's not, I wasn't specifically aiming this message at young men to begin with. It just kind of turned out that way.
And it's mostly, you admit, it's mostly men listening. I mean,
It
90%
is.
of your audiences are men,
Well, it's
right?
about 80% on YouTube, YouTube is a male domain primarily. So it's hard to tell how much of it is because YouTube is male and how much of it is because of what I'm saying. But what I've been telling young men is that there's an actual reason why they need to grow up, which is that they have something to offer, that people have within them this capacity to set the world straight, and that's necessary to manifest in the world. And that also doing so is where you find the meaning that sustains you in life.
So what's gone wrong then?
Oh God, all sorts of things have gone wrong. I don't think that young men are hear words of encouragement. Some of them never in their entire lives, as far as I can tell. That's what they tell me. And the fact that the words that I've been speaking, the YouTube lectures that I've done and put online, for example, have had such a dramatic impact is an indication that young men are starving for this sort of messaging. Why in the world would they have to derive it from a lecture on YouTube? No, they're not being taught that it's important to develop yourself.
But does it bother you that your audience is predominantly male? Isn't that a bit divisive?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's no more divisive than the fact that YouTube is primarily male and Tumblr is
Well, that's
primarily
pretty divisive,
female.
isn't
Well,
it?
but Tumblr is primarily female.
But you're just saying that's the way it is.
Well, I'm not saying anything. It's just an observation that that's the way it is. There's plenty of women that are watching my lectures and coming to my talks and buying my books. It's just that the majority of them happen to be men.
What's in it for the women, though?
Well, what sort of partner do you want? Do you want an overgrown child? Or do you want someone to contend with that's going to help you and that
So
you
you're
can
saying
rely on?
women have some sort of duty to sort of help fix the crisis of masculinity?
It depends on what they want. No, I mean, it's exactly how I laid it out. Like, women deeply want men who are competent and powerful. And I don't mean power in that they can exert tyrannical control over others. That's not power. That's just corruption. Power is competence. And why in the world would you not want a competent partner? Well, I know why, actually. You can't dominate a competent partner. So if you want
women
domination,
want to dominate, is that what you're saying?
no, I'd say women who have had their relationships their relationships with men impaired, and who are afraid of such relationships will settle for a weak partner because they can dominate them. But it's a suboptimal solution.
Do you think that's what a lot of women are doing?
I think there's a substantial minority of women who do that. And I think it's very bad for them. They're very unhappy. It's very bad for their partners, although the partners get the advantage of not having to take any responsibility.
But what gives you the right to say that? I mean, maybe that's how women want their relationships, those women. I mean, you're making these vast generalizations.
I'm a clinical psychologist.
Right, so you're saying you've done your research and women are unhappy dominating men.
I didn't say they were unhappy dominating men. I said it was a bad long-term solution.
Okay, you said it was
It's not
making
the
them
same
miserable.
thing. Yes, it is. And it depends on the time frame. I mean, there's intense pleasure in momentary domination. That's why people do it all the time. But it's no formula for a successful long-term relationship. That's reciprocal, right? Any long-term relationship is reciprocal, virtually by definition. So
let me put a quote to you from the book.
Okay, so shall we just stop there briefly? So obviously the first kind of point that she's bringing up is the fact that he's kind of well known for this self-development kind of thing that he has going, trying to help people. And she's obviously focusing in on the fact that he seems to have a primary male audience, right?
Yeah.
And he's obviously suggesting that's just an accident of the fact that YouTube generally is a more male-dominated audience. It's far different in true crime from what we're used to, right? It's a more female audience. But
I know. I'm thinking he's had, I think, his subscriber count is millions. And I think I took a quick look this afternoon at the views on his videos. It's 343 million. So I wonder if he's drawing the figures from his viewership, right? 343 million views. But yes, from our little corner, it's predominantly female, isn't it? But that's interesting. I'd like to do a bit of looking into that to see what is the ratio.
What's the reasons behind it? Yeah. Just from our own experience, I think it's obvious that it's definitely more female in true crime for some reason.
Absolutely.
I guess the obvious reason, right, is that females tend to be victims more than males do in crime, right?
Yeah, and maybe women are more. This is another Jordan theory and a life theory, I do believe, that females are more interested in people, aren't they? Yeah, and men are more interested in things and concepts and science, right? I mean, I'm being quite general, but that kind of falls in aligns with Jordan's what he's trying to say. Um, but I love him. He's kind of for me, listening to that, he is expressing some really old-fashioned, what I consider old-fashioned values. And he's not saying, buck your ideas up, son. He's just saying, take responsibility for your life. I'm not telling you off. I am trying to help you and teach you that this is the way forward in life. Life is going to be rough. Life is going to be tough. Stand up and face it. And I think that's one of his number one principles in his 12 rules for life, right, which we can talk about later. But isn't he wonderful? Isn't he wonderful?
He's
Yeah.
fantastic. So empathic, and
Yeah.
I think as well, there's another reason why he does generally have more of a male audience, right? Because I think there has been a sort of crisis of masculinity in the last sort of 20, 30 years, right?
Yes.
For a variety of reasons. And I think one of the reasons is the kind of what we were touching on earlier is that there's been a kind of universal movement of kind of group identity mindset of wanting to fight for your perceived rights of the minority group that you belong to, right? So it could be a race identity, it could be a sexuality identity, it could be femininity, right? Because obviously females have only very recently in history got to the level of having the same rights as males, right? But I think as a consequence of that kind of push up from all these different movements, there's been a kind of a foot down on just the concept of masculinity. And I think as a result of that, there's been a kind of like a universal oversensitivity kind of flowing into males universally, and they're kind of losing the kind of confidence of of feeling okay with being a man, right, in this Western culture. And to be white, straight, and male in Western culture is the least privileged group that you could ever belong to of recent times, right? There's nothing you can hold on to feel special in the way that all these other groups can, you know? And I think that's part of why he's become so successful, because I think it is true that there has been this like crisis of masculinity happening. What do you think?
You mean that the male has perhaps his position, his perceived position within society isn't as strong as it used to be. I don't mean like beating your chest strong. I mean defined, because I suppose late 70s, 80s, maybe the 80s, where you once had the very traditional man goes out to work, brings home the bacon, woman stays at home raising the children, both which I think are wonderful. Those two roles have merged, haven't they? I don't know many families these days, and I was one of them, where I had to work, both me and my husband, we had to work, and I think a lot of families, you have the mother and the father both working, right? So that those two roles have merged, and therefore, yes, the manly role and the feminine role have become less defined, haven't they? Because they've merged. Am I making sense?
You are, yeah.
Yeah.
And what I think is great about that is that's kind of happened naturally as a natural progress, right? Which is great. And I think Jordan Peterson would agree that that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But what I think he is noticing and he's arguing is that it's going over and beyond that, where there's an attempt with ideologically motivated people in groups to completely erase the concept of masculinity and just to almost make it a beige oneness between the genders so that there is no difference, so that
Yes.
there is no, you cannot make any generalization between masculinity and femininity, so that males and females essentially
Yeah.
have no differences, right? So they should have exactly equal outcomes in society. They should be 50.
Yeah.
There should be a 50-50 split in all the different occupations. And what is interesting is the argument he makes that you cannot have equal outcome. You can only have equal opportunity, right? So that opportunities for males and females in societies should definitely be the same, but
Yeah.
females will just tend to go towards certain occupations, and males will tend to go towards other occupations.
Yeah.
And also in terms of the fact that males in general are more susceptible to be able to dedicate their lives to an occupation,
Yes.
right? And to be
Yeah.
completely tunnel visioned into becoming highly successful worker, whereas females have other issues that they need to think about, which complicates the issue, because they go on to talk about the pay gap between the genders.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear Jordan speak about the fact that it's more complicated than you might think, why there is an actual pay gap.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember this. It's very interesting. Should we play on?
Yep.
Book, where you say there are whole disciplines in universities forthrightly hostile towards men. These are the areas of study dominated by the postmodern stroke neo-Marxist claim that Western culture in particular is an oppressive structure created by white men to dominate and exclude women. But then I want to put
Minorities too dominate.
Okay, sure. But I want to put to you that here in the UK, for example, let's take that as an example, the gender pay gap stands at just over 9%. You've got women at the BBC recently saying that the broadcaster is illegally paying them less than men to do the same job. You've got only 7 women running the top FTSE 100 companies.
Yeah.
So it seems to a lot of women that they're still being dominated and excluded, to quote your words back to you.
It does seem that way, but multivariate analysis of the pay gap indicate that it doesn't exist.
But that's
So
just
you
not
do
true,
uni-
is it?
That's
I mean, that
absolutely
9% pay gap, that's a gap between median hourly earnings
Yeah.
between men and women.
But there's
That
multiple,
exists.
yeah, but there's multiple reasons for that. One of them is gender, but it's not the only reason. Like if you're a social scientist worth your salt, you never do a univariate analysis. Like you say, well, women in aggregate are paid less than men. Okay, well, then we break it down by age, we break it down by occupation, we break it down by interest, we break it down by personality.
But you're saying basically it doesn't matter if women aren't getting to the top, because that's what's skewing that gender pay gap, isn't it? You're saying, well, that's just a fact of
No, I'm
life.
saying
Women
it
aren't
doesn't
necessarily
matter.
going to get to the top.
No, I'm not saying it doesn't matter either.
You're saying
I'm
it's a
saying
fact
there are
of life.
multiple reasons for it.
Yeah, but
and that
those
aren't being
reasons,
taken into
why
account.
should women put up with those reasons? Why should
Why should
women be
put up with it?
content
I'm not
not
saying
to
that
get
they
to the
should
top?
put up with it. I'm saying that the claim that the wage gap between men and women is only due to sex is wrong. And it is wrong. There's no doubt about that. The multivariate analysis have been done. So
Well,
I can give you an
you keep
example.
on talking about multivariate analysis.
Let me give you an example.
I'm saying that 9% pay gap exists.
Yeah.
That's a gap between men and women. I'm not saying why it exists, but it exists. Now,
Yeah, but
if
you
you're a
have to say
woman,
why
that
it
seems
exists.
pretty unfair.
You have to say why it exists.
But do you agree that it's unfair? If you're a woman,
Not necessarily.
and on average you're getting paid 9% less than a man, that's not fair, is it?
It depends on why it's happening. I can give you an example. Okay. There's a personality trait known as agreeableness. Agreeable people are compassionate and polite. And agreeable people get paid less than less agreeable people for the same job. Women are more agreeable than men.
Again, a vast generalization. Some
It's not
women
a
are not more
generalization.
agreeable than
Yes,
men.
that's true, but that's right. And some women get paid more than men.
So you were saying that by and large, women are too agreeable to get the pay rises they deserve.
No, I'm saying that that's one component of a multivariate equation that predicts salary. It accounts for maybe 5% of the variance, something like that.
So surely
you
the
need about
answer-
you need about another 18 factors, one of which is gender. And there is prejudice, there's no doubt about that, but it accounts for a much smaller proportion of the variance in the pay gap than the radical feminists claim.
Okay, so rather than denying the pay gap exists, which is what you did at the beginning of this conversation, shouldn't you say to women, rather than being agreeable and not asking for a pay rise, go and ask for a pay rise? Make yourself disagreeable with your boss.
Oh, definitely, there's that. But I also didn't deny it existed. I denied it existed because of gender.
Okay.
See, because I'm very, very, very careful with my words.
So the pay gap.
Did you notice that? She just completely misrepresented what he said.
Yeah.
100%. He did not say that.
Yeah. I know, and I love it that you ended on when he said, "I am very, very careful with my words," and he is, and I'm following him. But she's, I mean, she's very smart, isn't she? And she's trying to not trip him up, but she's trying to. I don't like the word debate, but I suppose they are debating, aren't they? She's really trying to debate him, and with all due respect, Miss Newman, you're failing a little in this argument. Yeah, but I can see where he's going. It's multi-layered, isn't it? There's many components to that 9% less than men, and it's not huge, is it? It's not huge, but yeah, he's just starting, isn't he? He's just starting. So yeah, what do you think? You obviously you're following what he's saying, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there is a variety of reasons why there is that gap, I think. Even though there is still probably some prejudice in there, I think that is probably true. And I think he acknowledges that there. But he's trying to highlight the point that is only one component. There's other components that are just as important. You know,
Absolutely.
the fact that obviously women are the childbearers and tend to be the ones that are more suited to be the ones at home, right, in the first so many years of the child's life. And
absolutely.
It's just kind of unavoidable that is something that can interfere with a long-term, high-scale career path, you know? And
it deviates from being able to be, like you said earlier, a man is more able to be utterly dedicated to his job role and to pursue his career. A woman will have a huge deviation with motherhood, which I think is one of the most important roles in the world. Most important job you can have is being a mother. You know, and what's the payoff? All right, you resume your career and you struggle with 9% less, being paid 9% less than a man. Well, I actually think that trade-off is fine, right? Because you've dedicated your time to being a mother and to raising children, right? So you're going to have that. You're going to have that. You're not going to be able to have that dedication. Your dedication is to your child and to your family and to be,
which is more important, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. And I love what Jordan is saying. You know, I think she's presenting a good argument, you know, for women in the workplace, but I'm with Jordan on this. Should we play on?
Yeah. I'll just quickly point out as well that one of the other points that he makes is the fact that one of the other personality traits that has an effect on, you know, your salary is your agreeableness, right? And agreeableness is in general more of a feminine trait. So that's just one other example, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, just something quickly to say about Kathy Newman is that I think she has Jordan Peterson, and it's understandable why, right? Because she's obviously a very busy person, right? She doesn't have time to look into the background of every interviewee that she has on her panel, right? But she's obviously got her team working for her, and they give her some, you know, bullet points about who Jordan Peterson is and why he's controversial. So she is trying to fit, you know, like one of those kids' shapes into the hole, right? She wants him to fit into that shape, but he doesn't fit in there. But she doesn't realize that yet. She has an image of who Jordan Peterson is, and she's
trying to
slowly
peg
starting to
him.
find. trying to peg him, yeah, and she's slowly finding out that it's not quite working.
I love how she's thinking, though. She's great. You know,
She
as
is,
the
yeah.
interview goes on, she's really open and honest, isn't she? And yeah, I think she conducts herself. I think they both conduct themselves very well.
It's a great interview.
It's a wonderful conversation, isn't it? Yeah.
That exists. You accept that. But you're saying, I mean, the pay gap between men and women exists. You're saying it's not because of gender, it's because women are too agreeable to ask for pay rises. So
It's
make
one
them,
of the reasons.
Okay, one of the reasons. So why not get them to ask for a pay rise?
I've
Wouldn't
done
that
that.
be a fairer
I've done
way of
that
proceeding?
many, many times in my career.
And they just
I've counseled. Oh, they do it all the time. You can. It's so one of the things that you do as a clinical psychologist is assertiveness training. So you might say, often you treat people for anxiety, you treat them for depression, and maybe the next most common category after that would be assertiveness training. And so I've had many, many women, extraordinarily competent women in my clinical and consulting practice, and we put together strategies for their career development that involve continual pushing, competing for higher wages, and often tripled their wages within a 5-year period, teaching
you
them how to
celebrate that?
negotiate. Of course.
So
Of
do
course.
you agree that you would be happy if that pay gap was eliminated completely?
It
Because
would
that's all
depend.
the radical feminists are saying.
It would depend on how it was eradicated and how the disappearance of it was measured.
And you're
These
saying
things
if
you
it's at the
can't- you
cost
can't-
of men, that's a problem.
Oh, there's all sorts of things that it could be at the cost of. It could even be at the cost of women's own interests. So
Because they might not be happy if they get equal pay.
no, because it might interfere with other things that are causing the pay gap that women are choosing to do.
Like having children.
Well, or choosing careers that actually happen to be paid less, which women do a lot of.
But why shouldn't women have the right to choose not to have children or the right to choose those
they-
demanding
They
careers?
do, they can. Yeah, that's fine.
But you're saying that makes them unhappy, by and large.
I'm saying that, no, I'm not saying that. I actually haven't said that so far. in
You're
the
saying it
program.
makes them miserable.
No, I
at the
said that
beginning.
what was making them miserable was having weak partners. That makes them miserable.
Right.
I would say that many women around the age of, I would say between 28 and 32, have a career family crisis that they have to deal with. And I think that's partly because of the foreshortened time frame that women have to contend with. Like women have to get the major pieces of their life put together faster than men, which is also partly why men aren't under so much pressure to grow up. So because for the typical woman, she has to have her career and family in order pretty much by the time she's 35, because otherwise the options start to run out. And so that puts a tremendous amount of stress on women, especially at the end of their 20s.
I think I take issue with the idea of the typical woman because, you know, all women are different. And that's what I want to just put another quote to you from the book.
Well,
You
they're
say,
different in some ways and the same in others.
Okay, you say women become more vulnerable when they have children.
Oh,
And
yes.
you talked in one of your YouTube interviews about crazy harpy sisters. So, simple question. Is gender equality a myth in your view? Is that something that's just never going to happen?
It depends on what you mean by equality. You know,
Being
if you
treated
mean that
fairly,
men and women
getting
are
the same opportunities?
fairly, we could get to a point where people were treated fairly or more fairly. I mean, people are treated pretty fairly in Western culture already, but we could
But they're
improve
really
that.
not, though, are they? I mean, otherwise, why
depends.
would there only be 7 women running FTSE 100 companies in the UK? Why would there still be a pay gap, which we've
Oh, well,
discussed
that's
at
easy.
length?
It's easy to
Why are
answer
women
that
at the
question.
BBC saying that they're getting paid illegally less than men to do the same job?
Well,
That's not fair,
Well,
is
let's
it?
go to the first question. Those are complicated questions. Seven women, repeat that one. There's only
7 women running the top FTSE 100 companies in the UK.
Okay. Well, the
I mean,
first
that's not
question
fair.
might be, why would you want to do that?
Why would a man want to do it? I
Well,
mean, there's a lot of
there's
money. It's an interesting
There's a
job.
certain
You know?
number of men, although not that many, who are perfectly willing to sacrifice virtually all of their life to the pursuit of a high-end career. So they'll work. These are men that are very intelligent. They're usually very, very conscientious. They're very driven. They're very high energy. They're very healthy. And they're willing to work 70 or 80 hours a week, nonstop, specialized at one thing to get to the top.
So you're saying women are just more sensible. They don't want that because it's not a nice life.
I'm saying that's part of it, definitely. And So I work
So
for...
you don't think there are barriers in their way that prevent them getting to the top
Oh,
of
there
those
are some
companies?
barriers, yeah, like men, for example. I mean, to get to the top of any organization is an incredibly competitive enterprise. And the men that you're competing with are simply not going to roll over and say, please take the position.
So let me come back to my
absolute
question.
all-out warfare.
Is gender equality a myth?
I don't know what you mean by the question. Men and women aren't the same, and they won't be the same. That doesn't mean they can't be treated fairly.
Is gender equality desirable?
If it means equality of outcome, then almost certainly it's undesirable. That's already been demonstrated in Scandinavia. Because in Scandinavia...
What do you mean by that? Equality of outcome is undesirable.
Well, men and women won't sort themselves into the same categories if you leave them alone to do it off their own accord. I've already seen that in Scandinavia. It's 20 to 1 female nurses to male, something like that. It might not be quite that extreme, and approximately the same male engineers to female engineers. And that's a consequence of the free choice of men and women in the societies that have gone farther than any other societies to make gender equality the purpose of the law. Those are ineradicable differences. You can eradicate them with tremendous social pressure and tyranny, but if you leave men and women to make their own choices, you will not get equal outcomes.
Right, so you're saying that anyone who believes in equality, whether you call them feminists, call them whatever you want to call them, should basically give up because it ain't going to happen.
Only if they're aiming at equality of outcome.
So you're saying give people equality of opportunity, that's fine.
That's such a big point he makes there. Like in Scandinavia, where they have tried more than any other society to push society into a situation where the genders are split 50-50 in terms of every different occupation, and it hasn't worked.
Yeah, they've given them the choice, haven't they? They've left the I've taken that as they've left the genders to make their choice, and the choices that they've made have evolved into the males taking on more engineering, mechanical roles, 20 to 1, and women taking on more nursing roles,
More
20
maternal.
to 1.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
men and women are different. Right?
Yeah, so-
men are into things and women are into people. Yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but the
Yes.
concept behind it to begin with, right? What they were trying to do, what they thought was going to happen, is if they gave males and females the exact equal opportunity to go into these different occupations, they thought there would be a 50-50 split. But in
And
reality, there
Yeah.
wasn't at all. And
It
what's wrong
naturally
with that?
evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's great. And yeah, he's right. It evolves. It nature is nature, isn't it? Men are into, like I've just said, into things and things mechanical, right? And women are into people and nurture. Yeah. It sounds simplistic to say it like that, but it's true. It is true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in a way, that is equality, isn't it? I think I understand what he's saying, because you've given people the choice.
Yes.
And they've
as
made
long as
choices that they're inclined to and that they want to make.
as long as the opportunity is equal, then you
Yes.
cannot argue with the outcome.
Exactly, Rabid.
That's the essential point.
Yeah. This is great stimuli for the brain, isn't it?
Not only fine, it's eminently desirable for everyone, for individuals and for society.
But still women aren't going to make it. That's what you're really
It
saying.
depends on your measurement techniques. They're doing just fine in medicine. In fact, there are far more female physicians than there are male physicians. There are lots of disciplines that are absolutely dominated by women. Many, many disciplines, and they're doing great. So
let me put something else to you from the book. You say the introduction of the equal pay for equal work argument immediately complicates even salary comparison beyond practicality for one simple reason. Who decides what work is equal? It's not possible. So the simple question is, do you believe in equal pay?
well, I made the argument there. It's like it depends on
So
who
you don't
defines
believe
it.
in equal pay?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Because a lot of people listening to you will just say, I mean, are we going back to the dark
That's
ages
because they're actually
here?
not listening. They're
I'm
just
listening very
projecting
carefully,
what
and
they
I'm
think.
hearing you basically saying women need to just accept they're never going to make it on equal terms equal outcomes is how you defined it.
No, I didn't
If I
say
was
that.
a young
said that
woman
equal-
watching that, I would go, well, I might as well just go and play with my Cindy dolls and give
didn't
up
say
trying
that.
at school because I'm not going to get the top job I want because
said
there's
that
someone sitting there saying it's not possible
I
and it's
said
not
that
desirable,
equal
it's going to make
outcomes
you
aren't
miserable.
desirable. That's what I said. It's a
Yeah,
bad
it's not
social
desirable.
goal. I didn't say that women shouldn't be striving for the top or anything like that, because I don't believe that for a second.
Striving for the top, but you're going to put all those hurdles in their way, as has been in their way for centuries, and that's fine. You're saying that's fine.
No, I really
The
think
patriarchal
I
system
really
is
think
just
that's
fine.
silly. I do. I think that's silly. I really do. I mean, look at your situation. You're hardly unsuccessful.
Yeah, and I have
How do
battled
you
quite
manage
hard
it?
to get where I've got
Exactly.
to.
Good
So that's
for you.
okay. Battling is good. This is all
It's
about the fight.
inevitable.
But you talk about men fighting. I mean, let me just put another thing to you from the book.
Why
You're
wouldn't
saying
you have to
real.
battle for a high quality position?
Well, I notice in your book you talk about real conversations between men containing, quote, an underlying threat of physicality.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
What about real conversations between women? Is that something, or are we sort of too amenable and reasonable?
No, it's just that the domain of physical conflict is sort of off limits for you.
Well,
And
you
it's
just said
rather
that I've
unfortunate.
fought to get where I've got.
Yeah, but
What does that make me?
well,
a
I
sort of
don't
proxy
imagine.
man or
I
something?
don't imagine that yeah, to some degree, I suspect you're not very agreeable.
So that's the thing. Successful women, I'm not very agreeable.
Right.
But
I've noticed that
successful-
actually in this conversation.
At least
And
we
I'm
can have a
sure
joke
it
about
served your career well.
Successful women, though,
Mhm.
basically have to wear the trousers, in your view. They have to sort of become men to succeed, is what you're saying.
Well, if they're going
I've had to fight to succeed,
if they're
therefore
going to
I'm an
compete
honorary
against
man.
men, certainly masculine.
Good
This
point.
almost reminds me of our Chris Watts discussion, Alice.
I know. But I totally get what he's saying. I'm totally with him. He's saying you can achieve that. You can be competitive. You can put in that time. You can go for it. It's your choice, right? It's your choice to do that. And she's chosen to do that. And she's very successful, isn't she? Right? And it's yeah. I mean, I don't know whether she's got children or not. You know, I don't know where she is in her I don't know. I'm assuming she hasn't, right?
If
I
you
mean,
were
I
to
could be
guess, you
wrong.
would say not. Yeah.
Yeah, she probably has actually, but I don't know. But let's assume that I understand the point he's trying to make. You have the opportunity of choice, right? She does have that, and that's why she is successful.
But she's the exception, right?
Yes. Yeah.
In general terms, right?
Yeah.
She's obviously excelled in some
Yeah.
sense, right? But
Yes.
in general terms, it's harder for a female to have achieved what she has achieved because of just
the
the nature of her
distractions.
gender, right?
The distractions of being a female, yeah, they're more into people, they're more into caring, they raise children, they nurture children, they run the home, and all those things are great things, but they're a distraction to a high-powered career. I mean, he made a very valid point that these highly successful men do 70 hours a week. They're utterly dedicated to it. They can be, can't they? They do nothing else really but pursue their career.
Yeah,
right? And
half
they
of
don't
them are
have
probably psychopaths.
yes, high functioning, nice psychopaths. They don't have the distraction of being a female. And I'm not disparaging a female in any way whatsoever. I'm just saying she's distracted by a different set of very important things in life, right? The female things in life. That's just nature, isn't it?
Yeah.
Traits are going to be helpful. I mean, one of the things I do in my counseling practice, for example, when I'm consulting with women who are trying to advance their careers, is to teach them how to negotiate and to be able to say no and to not be easily pushed around and to be formidable. And you need to, if you're going to be successful, you need to be smart, conscientious, and tough.
Well, here's a radical idea. Why don't the bosses adopt the male bosses, shall we say, adopt some female traits so that women don't have to fight and get their sharp elbows out for the pay rises? It's just accepted if they're doing the same job, they get the same pay.
Well, I would say partly because it's not so easy to determine what constitutes the same job.
But that's because, arguably, there are still men dominating our industries, our society, and therefore they've dictated the terms for so long that women have to battle to be like the men.
No, it's not true. It's not true. So, for
Where's the
example,
evidence?
well, I can give you an example very quickly. So I worked with women who worked in high-powered law firms in Canada for about 15 years, and they were as competent and put together as anybody you would ever meet. And we were trying to figure out how to further their careers. And there was a huge debate in Canadian society at that point that was basically ran along the same lines as your argument, is that if the law firms didn't use these masculine criteria, then perhaps women would do better. But the market sets the damn game. It's like...
And the market is dominated by men.
No,
So
it's
what I'm
not. It's
asking
not.
you-
The market is dominated by women. They make 80% of the consumer decisions. That's not the case
What?
at all.
If you're talking
80%.
about people who stay at home looking after children, by and large, they are still women. So they're going out doing the shopping. But that is changing.
They make all
Anyway,
the
what I
consumer
want to ask
decisions.
you. Okay, so
The
what I want to
market is
ask you-
driven by
okay,
women, not men.
Right.
Okay, and if you're a lawyer
And they
in
still
Canada...
pay more for the same sort of goods. That's been proven, that men, you buy a blue bicycle helmet, it's going to cost less than a pink one. Anyway, we'll come on to that.
It's partly because men are less agreeable. Right, so they won't put up with it.
I want to ask you, is it not desirable to have some of those female traits you're talking about? I'd say that's a generalization, but you've used the words female traits. Is it not desirable to have some of them at the top of business? I mean, maybe there wouldn't have
They
been
don't predict
a
success.
banking crisis.
They
if
don't
that had
predict
happened.
success in the workplace. The things that predict success in the workplace are intelligence and conscientiousness. Agreeableness negatively predicts success in the workplace. And
So
so
you're
does
saying
high
that-
negative emotion.
You're saying that women aren't intelligent enough to run these top companies?
No, I didn't say that at all.
You said that female traits don't predict success.
But I didn't say that intelligence wasn't. I
conscientiousness
didn't say that
do.
intelligence and conscientiousness
Well, you were saying that
weren't
intelligence
female
and
traits.
conscientiousness by implication are not female traits.
No,
I
I'm
mean,
not
that's very
saying that.
dangerous
I'm
territory.
not saying that at all.
Are women less
There's-
intelligent than men, by and
No,
large?
no, they're not. No, the data on that's pretty clear. The average IQ for a woman and the average IQ for a man is identical. There is some debate about the flatness of the distribution, which is something that James Damore pointed out, for example, in his memo, but there's no difference at all in general cognitive ability. There's no difference to speak of in conscientiousness. Women are a bit more orderly than men, and men are a little bit more industrious than women. But the difference isn't big. But
I know
that
plenty of-
averages into
Plenty of men
conscientiousness.
who aren't necessarily as
Well, of
industrious.
course,
But
these are- Okay, but no,
female
but you
traits,
asked me
though,
the
why
question.
are they not...
Feminine traits.
Why
let's
are they
say.
not desirable at the top of... Feminine traits, why are they not desirable at the top of
It's hard to say. I'm just laying out the empirical evidence. Like we know the traits that predict success.
But we also know, because companies by and large have not been dominated by women over the centuries, we have nothing to compare it to. It's an experiment.
True, and it could be the case that if companies modified their behavior and became more feminine, that they would be successful. But
You
there's
seem
no
doubtful about
evidence
that.
for it. I'm not neither doubtful nor non-doubtful. There's no
So
evidence
why
for
not
it.
give it a go, as the radical
Because the evidence
feminists would
suggests,
say?
well, it's fine. If someone wants to start a company and make it more feminine and compassionate, let's say, and caring in its overall orientation towards its workers and towards the marketplace, then that's a perfectly reasonable experiment to run. My point is that there is no evidence that those traits predict success in the workplace. And there's
Because
this
it's never
evidence
been
is,
tried.
well, that's not really the case. Women have been in the workplace for what, at least ever since I've been around. The representation of women in the workplace has been about 50%. So we've run the experiment for a fairly reasonable period of time, but not, certainly not for centuries.
Let me move on to another debate that's been very controversial for you. And this is, you got in trouble for refusing to call trans men and women by their preferred personal pronouns.
No,
I want to
that's
ask-
not actually true. I got in trouble because I said I would not follow the compelled speech dictates of the federal and provincial government. I actually never got in trouble for not calling anyone anything.
Right.
That didn't
You
happen.
wouldn't follow the change of law, which was designed
Not
to
once it was
outlaw
law.
discrimination.
No.
Why
Well,
should
that's
your...
what they said it was designed to do.
Okay, you cited freedom of speech in that. Why should your right to freedom of speech trump a trans person's right not to be offended?
Because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. Like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? It's been rather uncomfortable.
Well, I'm very glad I put you on the spot.
Well,
I'm
you
very
get
glad that I've
but you get
exercised my freedom of
point.
speech.
You get my point. It's like you're doing what you should do, which is digging a bit to see what the hell's going on.
So
And
do
that is
you-
what you should do. But
and
you're
do you
exercising
think-
your freedom of speech to certainly risk offending me. And that's fine. I think more power to you as far as I'm concerned.
So you haven't sat there and I'm just trying to work that out. I mean,
Ha, gotcha.
you have got me. You have got me. I'm trying to work
about
that through in
time.
my head. Yeah. It took a while.
It did, yeah.
So let's pause there, Alice.
I love that.
What a
I
moment
love that.
that
She's
was.
thinking. She's thinking at her face. She's thinking. Yeah, wonderful moment. Yeah, I love that point he makes about being offended. I've always said that. You know, there are some countries in this world where one is not allowed to be offended. To me, it's about freedom, right? I don't mind being offended, and I hope other people don't mind, me offending them. Let's talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about being offended. It shouldn't be something that makes someone angry, right? That's what I think. I'm offended
Yeah.
all day long, and I'm glad for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's just part of adult life, right? That is something you just
Absolutely.
have to accept. And I think that's kind of the thing is that in Western culture, it seems like we're growing up as adolescents and never getting out of the adolescent stage.
Yeah.
And I think his point there just utterly highlights the massive weakness in the argument of these activists, that are or have been pushing this whole pronoun thing.
Yeah.
It's all based on being offended,
Yes.
and
Yes.
like I don't know about you, right? But if I met like a new friend, right, that happened to be transgender,
Yes.
and I found out about their story and I understood who they were, I would have no issue whatsoever in calling them a she or a he, depending on what gender they now identified as, right? That's just
Same.
politeness. Of course I
Yeah.
would do that, right? I would have
Yes.
no problem with that whatsoever. But what Jordan's point is that as soon as you try and put that in law and make it convictable and determined as hate speech if you don't do that, that's
Yes.
like a big red line. It really
Yeah.
is, you can concoct all sorts of scenarios where that could be like a big issue, right?
Yeah.
As soon as you put that into law, it's like a Pandora's box.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, it's very delicate, isn't it? It's yeah. I mean, I'm all for championing the individual, and I agree with you. If I meet an individual, a person, I would be happy to concede to. Of course, I would be. They are who they are, right? And we should address them as who they are. But placing that into law, it's I don't know.
It's
I
like
don't know.
to me, it's like trying to preempt nature, right? As long as it happens organically and naturally, that we all just socially get used to these pronouns that people start to identify as long as that happens naturally, then that's fine. But
Yeah,
what's happening is they're trying to preempt that and they're trying to enforce it
yeah,
before it happens organically.
yeah,
That's the issue,
yeah.
you know?
It's difficult, isn't it? It's still evolving, isn't it? I think. Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I haven't really explored it too much. I know it's happening. I know it's happened a lot in the last 30 years. You hear a lot more about it, and people are a lot more open, aren't they? And society is much more accepting of it. It's kind
Mhm,
of the norm, isn't it? It's a norm sexuality, and
mhm.
yeah, I'm absolutely fine with that. But I'm not sure what I think about it in terms of the law. I'm pretty ignorant to it in terms of the law, to be honest with you. But
Well, th- that's only in regard to Canadian law, because
mhm,
obviously everyone knows that Canada is one of the most left liberal kind of political
Yeah.
systems that exists in the West, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely a trend that's happening,
Yeah.
which is kind of worrying. But I'll just tell you a very quick story, right, just to get your
Mm-hmm.
reaction on this.
Yeah.
I went into, I was going into Hallmarks the other day.
Yeah.
Hallmarks is a well-known shop in the UK for buying birthday cards and Christmas presents and things. I was getting a
Mm-hmm.
birthday card for one of my kids, and so I go and I grab the card that I want, and then I go and walk up to the counter, and there was what I think was a girl behind the counter,
Right.
but she had a big cardboard sign on the very front of the desk that said, "I only respond to her."
Right.
Okay,
Was it
but she looked quite masculine, is the point, right?
right?
But there was just this card right in front of the desk, you know,
Specifically for her. For
specifically for
her.
her. Yeah.
Right.
And what would your reaction be to that? Because my reaction was, you're just trying to be special, right? Why have you gone to such effort?
Why does she feel the need to announce that? Am I
Yeah.
wrong to think that? That's my initial thought, Rabid. Why is she announcing that? Why is she drawing attention to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. That's what I would think. That's what I do think. Should I give it some more thought? I don't know. No. Yeah, that's my thought. Why the need to announce it?
Yeah, because there's many different things that are interesting about every one of us, right? But we
Yeah,
don't sort of like carry a banner in front of us saying, I
I
want to be
know.
recognized as being, a great musician, or I don't want to be
Yeah.
recognized as,
If someone's uncertain about you, do you need to announce that you want to clarify their curiosity? But she's preempting it, isn't she? She's preempting that. She's
mm,
assuming what others are going to think of her.
mm,
Am I right? Yeah.
yeah. But
So why do that? Why announce it? You
is
know?
there not is there not also a sense that they kind of almost want to be offended?
Yes, kind of, possibly, possibly. Um, I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of it's peculiar to me. It's like I'm half Chinese, half Norwegian. Whenever I'm around Chinese people, they think, oh, she's not pure Chinese. And when I'm around European people, they think, oh, she's not fully European. Am I to announce that I'm 50-50, right? To
Mm,
alleviate anyone's curiosity?
yeah,
Am I
I know,
making
right?
am I
You
wrong
are
to
making
say
sense.
that? Yeah, so why would I announce that? So why would anyone announce that about themselves? Just take people for who they are. And if I
Yeah,
get mistaken for being Thai, for Japanese, for Chilean, and I'm not offended by that. People ask me, I tell them, right? And so
I'm
why does someone need to preempt? So how did you feel, Rabid? What were your thoughts? Did you think,
I just thought, uh, that's strange. I don't think I like you, even though I don't know you.
yeah, yeah.
Like I'm moving back to Ireland soon, right? When I
Hmm.
land in Dublin, should I arrive with bagpipes and a kilt, right, and start blaring the bagpipes as I walk
Little
through the
banner,
airport? Yeah,
a little
I am
banner.
Scottish.
Yeah. I'm afraid I'm with you on that. Why announce it? Why draw attention to I think it's peculiar. Yeah, I
Okay.
don't care. I don't care how anyone is, as long as they're nice. Yeah?
Yeah, just be nice and just don't
As long
be
as you
so far up your own ass, please.
so this little card she had at the till at her
Oh,
station.
Alice, it was a big card.
Was it
It was
really?
a big,
I
big.
and
It was
tell
a
me what it
board.
said again. Tell me what it said again. I only.
I can't remember verbatim, but it was something like I only respond to her
All right.
or she. You know, it was a pronoun thing, right? I will please only address me as her or she, something like that.
So you didn't say good afternoon, sir.
I don't. But yeah,
Right.
she was obviously very masculine, and she was going through a transition, right? Fair enough.
Right.
Like fair play to you,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But like as I
Yeah.
said before, right? Just let it
The
happen naturally and
Yes.
organically, and
Yes. I
all your good
agree.
friends will address you the way you want to be addressed, right? That
I
will
agree
happen.
with you. I
Just don't
agree
try
with
and
you.
be special.
Don't make a poster.
Yeah.
And don't announce it. Yeah, it's that bit. It's the announcement, isn't it? It's the expectation. It's the attention. Yeah, I do. I have to be honest and say I think that's peculiar. I've got nothing against transgender at all. Of course I haven't. To me, you're a human being doing your own thing, being your own sexuality. End of. Right?
Yeah.
No announcement required.
But
Yeah.
just to emphasize the problem, right? It's not just a sort of semantic issue, right? It's actually becoming a little bit more of a problem because
Mhm.
there's become instances in the last 5, 10 years where there is people, right? Say, let's just talk about sport, for example.
Yeah.
There's both swimmers and there's fighters in the UFC, martial arts, who are
Mm.
born as male, right?
Right.
And are
Mhm.
going through the transition to be female.
Mhm.
But they're still not the whole way yet, okay? But they are legally classed as being female. But they
Right.
have the physical attributes of a male still, okay? But they are
Mhm.
legally allowed to enter the UFC and fight in the female half of the UFC, and they're killing all the females that are in there, right? Because they have a lot more strength, obviously, still, right?
Yeah.
And the same in swimming,
Yeah.
and that is just plainly wrong, right? So
Because they. Mhm.
there's all these swimmers taking all the medals from females that were born female because they're going through the transition from being a male to a female, right? But they're
Right.
not, they still possess some of the male attributes, so they're capable of swimming a bit faster,
Which is
right?
strength.
But
Yeah.
which is strength, but
Yes.
they're legally termed as female, and
Right.
they've gone from competing in the female section and getting nowhere,
Mm.
right? Way down the list, never getting anywhere near the medals, and they're now collecting all the medals easily,
Mm.
you know?
Right. Because they are. I mean, there's a reason why the Olympics. You have the men's, right? Men's events and female events. They're never crossed, are they?
Mhm.
Am I right? Never seen
No,
that
you're
in the
right, yeah.
Olympics, apart from horse jumping and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
But in terms of running and strength, it's clearly defined, isn't it? You've got the men's heats and the women's heats. So
Yeah.
yeah, gosh, that needs some
Messed up,
contemplation,
right?
doesn't it? It does, yeah.
And
Um,
just to reiterate the
yeah,
point here, right? Like we're only talking about people that are born 100% male or female and make the transition, because there
yeah,
is genuine cases where people are born pretty much in the middle, right? They are
yes,
very unique and isolated
that's
circumstances,
right.
right? And like,
They're transsexual, aren't they? Where
yeah,
they're both, where they have
literally
both
from birth.
both
Yeah,
sets of yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So obviously that's a different scenario, but I'm only talking about
yes,
the other cases, right?
understood, understood, yeah. hmm Yeah, this is fascinating, isn't it? This is it's heating up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's continue this.
Took a while. You have voluntarily come into the studio and agreed to be questioned.
Mhm.
A trans person in your class has come to your class and said they want to be called
And that's never
she.
happened. and I would call them she.
So you would. So you've kind of changed your tune on that.
No, I said that right from the beginning. What I said at the beginning was that I was not going to cede the linguistic territory to radical leftists, regardless of whether or not it was put in law. That's what I said. And then the people who came after me said, oh, you must be transphobic and you'd mistreat a student in your class. It's like, I never mistreated a student in my class. I'm not transphobic, and that isn't what I said.
Well, except you've also called trans campaigners authoritarian, haven't you? I mean, isn't that
well, only in the broader context of my claims that radical leftist ideologues are authoritarian,
yes,
which they are.
You're saying someone who's trying to work out their gender identity, who may well have struggled with that, had quite a
no
tough
doubt
time over the
struggled
years.
with it, yeah.
You're comparing them with, you know, Chairman Mao, who saw the deaths of millions of people. Well, even if the activists, you know, they're trans people too. They have a right to say these things.
Yeah, but they don't have a right to speak for their whole community.
To compare them to Chairman Mao or, you know, Pinochet, Augusto Pinochet. I mean, you know, this is grossly insensitive.
No, I didn't compare them to Pinochet.
Well,
I did compare them to
He
Mao.
was an authoritarian.
He's a right-winger, though. I was comparing them to the left-wing totalitarians.
Okay.
And I do believe they are left-wing totalitarians.
Under Mao, millions of people died.
Right.
I mean, there's no comparison between Mao and a trans activist, is there?
Why not?
Because trans activists aren't killing millions of people?
The philosophy that's guiding their utterances is the same philosophy.
The consequences are...
Not yet.
You're saying that trans activists could lead to the deaths of millions of people?
No, I'm saying that the philosophy that drives their utterances is the same philosophy that already has driven us to the deaths of millions of people.
Okay, tell us how that philosophy is in any way comparable.
Sure, that's no problem. The first thing is that the philosophy presumes that group identity is paramount. That's the fundamental philosophy that drove the Soviet Union and Maoist China. And it's the fundamental philosophy of the left-wing activists. It's identity politics. It doesn't matter who you are as an individual. It matters who you are in terms of your group identity.
You're just saying things, though, to provoke, aren't you? I mean, you are a provocateur.
I never said
anything. You're like
anything.
the alt-right that you hate to be compared to. You want to stir things up.
I'm only a provocateur insofar as when I say what I believe to be true, it's provocative. I don't provoke. Maybe for humor,
you don't set out
now
and
then. I'm not interested in provoking.
But what about the thing about, you know, fighting and the lobster? Tell us about the lobster.
Well, that's quite a segue. Well, the first chapter I have in my book is called Stand Up Straight with Your Shoulders Back. And it's an injunction to be combative, not least to further your career, let's say, but also to adopt a stance of ready engagement with the world and to reflect that in your posture. And the reason that I write about lobsters is because there's this idea that hierarchical structures are a sociological construct of the Western patriarchy. And that is so untrue that it's almost unbelievable. And I use the lobster as an example because the lobster, we divulged from lobsters in evolutionary history about 350 million years ago, common ancestor. And lobsters exist in hierarchies, and they have a nervous system attuned to the hierarchy. And that nervous system runs on serotonin, just like our nervous systems do. And the nervous system of the lobster and of the human being is so similar that antidepressants work on lobsters. And it's part of my attempt to demonstrate that the idea of hierarchy has absolutely nothing to do with sociocultural construction, which it doesn't.
Let me just get this straight. You're saying that we should organize our societies along the lines of the lobsters.
I'm saying that it's inevitable that there will be continuity in the way that animals and human beings organize their structures. It's absolutely inevitable. And there is 1/3 of a billion years of evolutionary history behind that. Right? That's so long that 1/3 of a billion years ago, there weren't even trees. It's a long time. You have a mechanism in your brain that runs on serotonin that's similar to the lobster mechanism that tracks your status. And the higher your status, the better your emotions are regulated. So as your serotonin levels increase, you feel more positive emotion and less negative emotion.
So you're saying, like the lobsters, we're hardwired as men and women to do certain things, to sort of run along tram lines, and there's nothing we can do about it.
No, I'm not saying there's nothing we can do about it, because it's like in a chess game, right? There's lots of things that you can do, although you can't break the rules of the chess game and continue to play chess. Your biological nature is somewhat like that, is it sets the rules of the game, but within those rules you have a lot of leeway. But the idea that, one thing we can't do is say that hierarchical organization is a consequence of the capitalist patriarchy. It's like, that's patently absurd. It's wrong. It's not a matter of opinion. It's seriously wrong.
Aren't you just whipping people up into a state of anger? And
Not at all.
Divisions between men and women, you're stirring people up. You know, you have any critics of you online get absolutely lambasted by your followers. You've
And
got to
by
call
me,
them off, haven't
generally.
you? Sorry, your critics get lambasted by you. I mean,
If
isn't
they're
that
academics.
irresponsible?
Not at all. If an academic is going to come
Okay.
after me and tell me that I'm not qualified and that I don't know what I'm talking about,
So
like,
you're
it's
not going to say
seriously
to your
not the
followers
same.
now, quit the abuse, quit the anger.
Well, we'd need some substantial examples of the abuse and the anger before I could detail that question.
There's a lot of it out there.
Let's take a more general perspective on that. So I've had 25,000 letters since June, something like that, from people who told me that I've brought them back from the brink of destruction. And so I'm perfectly willing to put that up against the rather vague accusations that my followers are making the lives of people that I've targeted miserable.
Jordan Peterson, thank you.
My pleasure. Nice talking with you.
He's wonderful. 25,000 letters
Wow.
of people that he's helped. Yeah, and I can well imagine that. He's such a decent man. You know, I love that.
Yeah. And it's
exchange there.
I don't know about you, but I find it quite sad that he polarizes people so much, because it's definitely the case that a lot of people really can't stand him, you know, and everyone else loves him.
Yeah.
Strange,
Yeah.
isn't it?
He kind of
Why is that?
because he offends people, right? And people like to throw their toys out of the pram. That's what I think. Yeah. He you know, I think he's very patient, isn't he? He's very patient. He is trying to encourage people to think, and he's steadfast to that. He just wants you to think. Whenever I watch any of his work, I've told you before, if I'm watching a piece on Jordan, normally if I'm listening to someone, I'm working, I've got, you know, I can play a number of YouTubers or anything in the background. But if Jordan's on, I have to sit still and listen to him, because what he has to say is so valuable, and he is very thought-provoking, and I just can't argue with him. Everything he says, I just think, yeah, you're right.
I tell you what, Alice, it's been a good 2-3 years since I actually have listened to Jordan. And it's been so cool to delve into him again, because I've literally forgotten so much, you know, of what's important about what he had to say that was so meaningful, you know. I feel like I've kind of lapsed in a sense, you know, in terms of what I took from his advice, essentially, you know.
Yeah, he speaks so much sense.
So profound, it really is.
He is. He's profound, he's practical, he's pragmatic. I just think he's great, you know. And I just agree with everything he says. You know, it's quite rare, you know.
Shall we do what you suggested earlier, and we'll delve into the 12 rules of life, or the 12 rules for life? And just because he had, the way he constructed the book is that he had kind of 12 sort of bullet points for life, right? Of advice for how to improve yourself as a person. And we can maybe just touch upon each of them.
Jordan's publication, one of his most successful, The 12 Rules for Life, Antidote to Chaos. Shall we look at the 12 rules, Rabid?
Yeah, let's just touch upon them here and reflect upon each of them briefly. The first one there, number 1, stand up straight with your shoulders back. What does that mean to you?
And I do. When I was a little girl, right, my mum used to say to all of her children, stand up straight. you know, and she didn't just mean for posture. I believe in having good posture, you know, it's just healthy, isn't it? But she was teaching us to stand up straight, you know, stand up and face the world, you know, be proud and dignified, right? Stand firm, stand strong. That I think is great. You know, it's his first rule of the 12 rules, and it is to I think I read in the introduction today, the central theme of this book he wrote is that life is about suffering, right? You know, and that should form the basis of your very being, to know that life is hard and it's about suffering, and you just have to face it. Right? And it's true, isn't it? Life for everyone is fraught with all kinds of things. It's how you respond to that life. And you should respond to it by standing up straight with your shoulders back. Agree?
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, there's this bittersweet thing just about life, which by definition has a bad end, right? We all expire,
Yeah.
but we can glorify in our existence in the meantime, right? And we can try our best to be the best person we can be
Yeah.
until it's all over, you
Yeah.
know? And that's exemplified by standing up straight with your shoulders back,
Yeah.
being the best person you can be. And I hate to use this flippant, crass cliche, but fake it until you make it, in a sense, you know? Fake it
Yeah.
until you catch up with who you actually want to be. I always remember him talking about how important it is to dress like the person that you envisage yourself being in
Yes.
5, 10 years' time,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It's how you conduct yourself, isn't it? It's really important, you know? I like that thought. Number 2,
Number
shall I read
2,
out number 2?
go for it.
Treat yourself like you are someone you are responsible for helping.
Yeah, that's something that is a kind of well-known trope for anyone that's gone through any kind of mental health issues, anyone that's ever suffered from a little bit of depression, anxiety. That's one of the first things that they will tend to try and get you to digest, is that try and see yourself externally, almost abstractly from yourself. Try to remove yourself from who you are and look at yourself as another person,
Yes.
and try and have compassion for that person.
Yes.
Look after that person.
Yes. That's a
And
wonderful
try and,
idea, isn't it?
yeah, and try not to be too hard on yourself. Give yourself a break, and yeah, treat yourself like
Yeah.
someone you're responsible for helping.
I like that thought. It's a very warm and kind thought, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
Number 3, befriend people who want the best for you.
Obviously. Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
hard one though, right?
Do you think?
I mean, yeah, because I think a lot of people, including myself, have come across people who we assumed were certain types of people that we thought would want the best for us that
Yes.
didn't, right? And that's
Yes.
part of experiencing things in life, isn't it?
I think live and learn should come after number 3. Yeah, because we do make friends. We do make friends with people who we want, who, you know, you want the best for them, and you think that they want the best for you. But sometimes it doesn't turn out like that, does it? But
Yeah.
I
I
think
think
that's a great.
I think the key thing is trying to detect the people who want the best for you.
Yes, I think that comes with age, doesn't it? Age and wisdom. Yeah, yeah. Number 4, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Totally buy into that. I don't compete with anyone. I don't compare myself to anyone. I'm just me. I compete with me, and I compare myself to me. So I'm all right with number 4. I don't know how you
Yeah,
view that. Yeah, that to me
I
is
like
quite.
that. I like
Yeah.
that because it's under the proviso that you're improving, right? That you're making steps to be a better version of yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think it was Theodore Roosevelt, one of my favorite quotes. It's very small, it's very simple. Comparison is the thief of joy. I like that. Don't compare yourself to anyone. Just compare yourself to you. Do better tomorrow than you've done today. Yeah?
Why does that sound so perfectly relevant to YouTube?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, YouTube
Yeah.
creators, don't compare yourself to who you
I
were yesterday.
know. I know. It's oh, don't talk to me about YouTube drama. It's painful. It's painful. I've been away from it for weeks, and I dipped in, I think, early hours of last night, and I lasted for 5 minutes. It's just, yeah, this regurgitated comparison of each other and squabbling. Stop it. Yes. What do you have for number 5, Rabid?
Number 5, do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them.
Isn't that lovely?
That's a great one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
like to your children, you're not a god, but you're almost a god to them. You are their
Yeah.
heroes. You know,
Yes.
you are who they look up to.
They take their
Um,
learning from you, don't they?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their understanding of the world is diluted through you. So you have to
Yes.
understand how important that is, right?
Absolutely. I agree. I agree. That's so sweet, though, as well, the way he phrases it. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. Yeah?
And we
Yeah.
all, I'm sure 99% of us have memories of experiences that made us dislike our parents, right?
Yes. Yeah. Again, we live and learn, don't we? But it's a great rule. These are his rules, aren't they? And they're wonderful. Number
Yeah,
6, set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world.
I love that.
Yeah. We've spoken about this in the past, haven't we? About
Yeah,
keeping your room, check your own room right before you criticize anyone else's room. Yeah, I totally align with that. Yeah, it's
yeah,
peaceful, isn't it? I like that. It should
yeah,
be peaceful.
yeah.
Yeah.
You cannot go out there and start making judgments or analyzing or coming up with concepts of how things could be different if you're not if your own fundamentals are not in order, you know.
Yes. Yes. It's kind of another version of people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, isn't it? Sort of a variation of that. Yeah, I'm all for that kind of thinking.
And it's not going to
Yeah.
harm anyone else, it's only going to harm yourself, you know.
Hmm.
If you are if things aren't on an even keel in your own life, in your own house, as Jordan says, then
Hmm.
it's going to catch up on you. And anything on top of that that you're trying to present to the world is going to become weakened because of that.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
Number 7, pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient.
I try to.
Yeah.
I try to. Yeah.
So
I
basically,
think.
don't look for quick aggrandization, right?
Hmm.
Think ahead, think to the long term, I think is what he's saying there.
Yes. Yes. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Number 8, tell the truth, or at least don't lie. Yeah, I align with that as well. Yeah, I I know, I mean, I can't say that I've never ever told a lie in my life, but I've never felt good about it. You know, it leaves you with an awful feeling, and it should do, shouldn't it? When one tells lies. Yeah, I'm all for the truth. Yeah,
Yeah.
the truth in everything. Yes.
I think we all know what we all try to tell the truth, but we kind of tell half truths sometimes, right? When we're trying not to hurt people's feelings.
Yeah.
I think that's why he's put in there, at least don't lie.
Yeah.
Because that's not really a lie, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. Yeah. He's left the hyphen there means something, doesn't it? That you and I and everyone understand. Yeah, it's the white lie area, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Number 9, assume whoever you're listening to knows something you don't.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like to think I think that. I wouldn't say that I do that all the time though, but it's one to always be mindful of, isn't it? You know?
Well, I think it's the I think what he's saying is to have the default setting that whoever you're talking to has some kind of knowledge that you might not be privileged to yet and might have
Yes.
something to teach you or
Yes.
something to add into your own outlook on the world.
That's right.
To
And to
at
also
least
not
have
to
that default setting.
yeah, and to not to assume that you yourself know everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to think I'm mindful of that. I'm very open-minded. I'm very broad-minded. I hope that ties in with number 9. Number 10, be precise in your speech. I think I am.
I
Do you
try
think?
to be.
Yeah,
I think you are, yeah.
yeah. Be precise. Yeah, I think I am. I think I'm quite blunt as well, actually, which I always take as a compliment. Um, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's important to be precise because of how easily you can be misquoted, right, or misrepresented
Yeah.
if you're in any way in the public arena. It's very
And
important to be precise.
right, and to say what you mean clearly, right? It's you know, communicate well. Yeah. Because if you don't, you can sort of get into sticky situations, which we all do all the time, don't we? People misinterpret. So be as precise as possible. It's kind of easier said than done, isn't it? But
Indeed,
yeah,
yeah.
it's a great rule. Where are we? Number 11, Rabid. What's number 11?
Yeah, so number 11, do not bother children while they're skateboarding.
Yeah. Hmm. Don't
That's a
interrupt
kind
their
of,
joy and fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
We've all seen and we've all witnessed the kind of grumpy old guy that just cannot bear the thought of other people having great
I
fun.
know.
That's essentially what's going on, right?
Yes.
There's all these kids having fun. It doesn't have to be skateboarding. It could be anything, right?
Yeah, it could be
They're
anything. It
hanging
could be,
out and
yeah,
they're doing stuff which is to them annoying,
I
but
know.
what's really going on is that they are jealous, essentially.
Mm, yeah, I mean, yeah, they're killjoys, aren't they? That's basically what he's saying. Don't be a killjoy. Yeah. And of course, number 12, I think I've
Number 12
mentioned
is
this,
definitely a good one for you.
I've mentioned this to you before, Rabid. Pet a cat when you encounter one in the street. It's true. There's instant joy for you there. Yeah. Beautiful creature, you know. And hopefully he'll give you a little purr, a little purr, and
You've
yeah.
definitely convinced me that there's something wise about cats. I
Oh,
see
they're
them in a
just so
whole different light now.
yeah. They are so beautiful. I spent the weekend in London with my daughter and her cat, and yeah, he's just he's always there to greet me in the street, right? I don't know how he knows I'm arriving, but he's always there, and I'm filled with happiness when I see him. You know, he's just beautiful, beautiful.
I think we're going to be. What are we going to cover next, Alice?
I think I'd like to. I love the stuff you did on JODIE on Rabid Dog. I think we should pull together the life and crimes of JODIE ARIAS, and explore her time incarceration in prison. How's prison treating her? What where's she at? Do you think that'd be interesting?
Let's do it. I like that idea.
Yeah,
Let's
do
cover
too.
JODIE next on the
Yes.
human condition.
You've
love to do
renewed
that.
my fascination in her. So yes, yeah, I think that would be great. The life and crimes of JODIE ARIAS. All right, Rabid. Take care.
All right,
then.
Alice. Good
Good
night.
night. Good night.